Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So as you can tell based on the title, well, Prada Group and in particular Miu Miu continue ruling the world of fashion. So this from Reuters, third quarter net revenues for Prada rose 17.7%, driven by double-digit retail sales growth in Asia and Europe and by doubling sales at the smaller Miu Miu brand, the Italian luxury group said on Wednesday. The main brand Prada reported a 1.7 increase in retail sales in the period, slowing down compared to the previous quarter. We progressed through, so this is a quote, "We progressed through the year with another quarter of high quality like-for-like growth, supporting our positive trajectory in both revenue and margins," Prada CEO officer Andrea Guerra said in a statement, adding that the group's main brand showed resilience against sector headwinds. So yeah, this is in a stark contrast with a lot of the other luxury conglomerates, a lot of the other luxury brands. When we specifically look at LVMH and Kering, where the revenues in the fashion and leather goods sector especially have fallen, as well as missing estimates. Now with Hermes, they are doing very well. And another brand that is also doing very well that I haven't talked about is Brunello Cucinelli, but they also have experienced rising sales in this quarter as well. I've done videos on Hermes, LVMH, and Kering, so if you haven't, checked those out as well. But if we take a look at the reports here, across the board, we are seeing growth. Miu Miu is the real star. Q3, there's 105% growth. Prada is up 2% and Church's is up 4%. If we look at geography, they're also up everywhere, which is quite impressive, especially because when you look at LVMH and Kering, they're often referencing the slump in sales in the Asia Pacific region, but we are seeing a 12% growth in Q3 here. So this statement on the success of Miu Miu from the brand. Miu Miu kept capitalizing on its sharp positioning, building a strong and distinctive identity. The brand's cross-pollination of fashion, cinema, and other arts continued to stimulate the cultural debate, consolidating the brand legacy and feeding the engagement with its global community. The immersive site-specific art project Miu Miu Tale and Tellers, presented in the framework of Art Basel, contributed to enhance the brand's tension to play across the spectrum of different artistic disciplines. Impactful creativity and communication drove the brand's consistent outperformance, leading to widespread appreciation across all product categories and geographies. The Spring-Summer 2025 fashion show continued to build Miu Miu's world of diverse and fierce individuals, leveraging the aesthetic codes developed over years. Prada also had consistent growth. They cite the Luna Rosa's participation with the America's Cup. They also designed a spacesuit for NASA. In the presentation, they state, Prada continued to enrich offer architecture in leather goods as introduction of newness with the Amy and the Darling handbags is coupled with ongoing revisitation of icons. If you haven't seen the Darling, it is quite similar to the Hermes Lindy. And we also have the Amy, which is very reminiscent of the Romy. Of course, we also saw the Marga, which had the Prada logo on it. And while Prada does have a lot of bags that feel like dupes of other brands, I do think there are customers where they really have an affinity for that Prada logo. If it's working, it's working. Clearly, they're highlighting these bags as successful. Now, when it comes to Miu Miu, I actually think their bags are more interesting. I think the styling is more interesting. I think a lot of it has to do with the styling, but what they are mainly promoting are the Adventure, the Wander, the Arcady, and the Joy. They've also introduced the Penny bag, which looks like a penny loafer. In the reports, they also mention, which I talked about in my last video, how Miu Miu specifically has this total look. There is this image of the Miu Miu woman that has been solidified, and I think there has been a lot of work in terms of marketing, in terms of the creative direction, in terms of the shows, in terms of who they choose to wear their clothes, how this image is crafted. This Miu Miu woman, I talked about this in my last video again, but she kind of has this very cutesy, she's a little bit nerdy, maybe even a bit sporty. I remember referencing a Jing Daily article last quarter, and they were talking about how this look really resonates with a specific kind of customer in Asia. It's also really resonated with Gen Z as well. It's this perfect combination of cutesy and bookish with sporty accents. I can see why this is doing very well. And also with Gen Z and TikTok, I see a lot of younger gals buying into Miu Miu through the vintage styles, which, to be fair, Prada and Miu Miu both constantly reference their own archives. A lot of what we're seeing on the runways are re-editions or inspirations of previous handbags. It's very interesting to look at that. And I was reading Vogue Business, and they had interviewed Bernstein luxury analyst Luca Solca, and he made this point about Miu Miu. While it's the brand that is riding high right now, there is an overall concern for the group. Quote, "The current Miu Miu trajectory confirms our view that the market is underappreciating the growth that Miu Miu can generate in the next 12 to 18 months. At the same time, it also confirms our worry that Prada, which is still the very bulk of the business, could be well past its peak growth potential." Another concern about Prada and Miu Miu, which I think a lot of other brands are having to reckon with right now, it's their constant price increases, that FOMO marketing, that fear that if you don't get the bag now, in a week it's going to go up, so you might as well buy it now. Now these brands have kind of reached a point where they can't really do that anymore. They could do that with the pandemic, but not so much. Prada, interestingly, has been a brand that has gone through price decreases with some of their handbags. Now, Andrea Guerra answered this question about Prada's price increases, stating that not all their prices have been moved up, but they are, quote, trying to stretch the price range. He called the strategy a price mix effect. Quote, "We were well to stretch the price range, are well positioned on entry prices, but we also have the substantial territory to extend price range upwards. We have always been a bit too short with our price range, so it means working on the products, the consumers, and the retail environment, and the opportunity to allow transactions in a more private manner in and out of stores." So when I think of Prada, I think of Prada having their more approachable, accessible price point, like the nylon priced bags, which they're very known for. It's substantially less, but it does have that legacy, that history, that symbolism if you put a triangle on it. And due to materials, they also probably cost less, but the markup is still quite high. But I find that their leather bags are quite high, while they may not be as high as a Chanel or an Hermes, maybe even like under Dior. Now, of course, they have their Galleria bag, which I think is their top line handbag. I would say it's probably comparable to like a Louis Vuitton Capucines or like a Fendi Peekaboo, something like that. And it's also noteworthy that this is the bag that they are choosing to do in exotics or in artist collaborations. So I think when one of the Prada CEOs is telling us here that they want to have this price mixture, but they also want to lengthen their prices and they're working on their retail environment. We're already seeing this as a made-to-order option in exotics, which we're seeing more and more brands doing. But when I think of the Prada Galleria, I've always thought of it as this is a bag you can definitely get for a very good deal on the pre-love market, but if it's an exotic, it's a little bit more special. It'll be a lot more, like way more, but it does have that prestige. But when I'm looking at these new handbags, I am just not convinced by them. I don't know, maybe it just could be me. In particular, the ones that they've mentioned, the Amy bag and the Darling bag, unless there's a significant design element that is very different, which they're not very different from what Hermes offers or what Celine offers. In fact, probably Celine and Hermes probably offer, because these bags have been with the brand much longer, especially Hermes, you get more variety. I don't know. I personally just wonder about these recent moves to just kind of copy other bags. I don't know. That's just me saying my personal bit here. But overall, I think this is so impressive what Miu Miu has done. Another thing I also wanted to talk about was in the presentation, they also included a profits and losses page for H1 for the first half of 2024. That's what H1 means. It's important to look at how a lot of this revenue is generated. There is a lot of work and a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into this. So when we look at the cost of goods and the selling, the advertising, the promotion, the design and the development, general and administrative costs, there's a high cost to operate a lot of these brands. Just for this first half, we're at 1.5 billion, right? And there's also taxes, and all of these add up. While we see the net revenue is very impressive, there's also a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. There's also the business side, there's also the creative side, there's Miuccio Prada and Patrizio Bertelli, but there's also all the people behind the scenes working to create this massive brand. They've had a very specific strategy, as well as it's been in line with the creative vision, and I think that's really important with Miu Miu and Prada Group in general. When the partner is married to the business side, both sides are able to connect and speak to each other. So yeah, yes, it really should be no surprise that Prada Group is doing very well. If you've been following luxury fashion, my algorithm is honestly full of influencers wearing Miu Miu, and they look great, by the way. But yeah, it's a very strategic, calculated form of marketing, but also the creative vision is so strong. The identity of this woman, the Miu Miu woman, is really solidified. I was just thinking, like, you know, you could easily get a pair of Miu Miu glasses, buy some like vintage or high street or whatever clothing, but just the bag or the sunglasses really work with the whole of this brand identity. And I will also say, whenever I look at these reports, I look at these numbers, I look at where the companies are profiting, where there is loss, where we are seeing gains. It's just always a reminder how massive these companies are, how they're these money-making machines. And of course, they have beautiful heritages, beautiful legacies behind them, incredible fashion, handbags that I'm sure many of us dream of or have collections of and obsessions with, beautiful accessories, the marketing behind a lot of these items that many of us long for. It's all part of this big business strategy. And at the end of the day, what we are looking at here is the dividends that are being paid to the shareholders. So hats off to Prada. That is my video. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.